Hello, and welcome to the Vegan Gym Live. We are the live stream where plant power meets cutting edge science. I am Dr. Daphne Bascom, and I am your host for today. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're new to the Vegan Gym Live, we're welcome. We're excited to see you here and welcome, and would love to hear you in the chat. Let us know where you're dialing in from, where you're listening in from, and let us know what you want to learn about today's topic, which is nutrition tips around sustainable fat loss. I am here today with a returning guest, Coach Marc Hayes. Marc, welcome back to the Vegan Gym Live.
Hello, and thank you, Daphne.
Marc, so when we were preparing for today's live, and I was asking you what may be a great topic. You wanted to talk about sustainable fat loss, which I'm sure is something that everyone on in our community would love to learn more about. Can you, you know, it's great to lose fat. It's another thing to sustain that fat loss. So, with that as a starter, what are some things that you were thinking about as we were conceptualizing this topic in terms of what needs to be the mindset for this community to sustain their fat loss goals?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's a really great question because I think a lot of times we get in a lot of people we want to lose weight, we want to lose body fat. Not everybody does. It depends on your goal, but a vast majority of us may be coming into health and fitness with the idea that I want to lose body fat, I want to get my body in shape, I want to look a certain way, I want to feel a certain way. Maybe we've got health goals that we want to work towards, which our doctors or have told us that we need to lose weight for. Basically, a vast majority of the fitness industry is heavily focused on weight loss or fat loss, more
Mhm.
specifically. So, with that, sometimes when we go into this goal without when we just jump into that goal without any real thought of the long term approach to achieving it, sometimes we can actually find ourselves in potentially a worse situation than when we started. And what I mean by that is if we don't treat our fat loss goals as a sustainable lifestyle change and we don't approach it in a sustainable way, typically what will happen is we'll see very intense, hard efforts when it comes to fat loss. We might see some really great results in that time, but ultimately, those results can often be short lived and we don't really learn anything from the process. So we end up doing very extreme, intense efforts and crash diets, which although can get us good results in the short term, typically they're so unsustainable that we can't actually maintain them for the long term. So it's for myself, having lost a lot of weight in the past, this is something I used to fall into like very often. And you can end up really pushing hard when it comes to fat loss, seeing a lot of great results, but ultimately you can't sustain that. And yeah, if you lose a lot of weight in 12 weeks, that's really awesome. But if the way that you got there was in a way that was so unsustainable that you, once you finish that fat loss phase, finish that diet, so to speak, we then pretty much we can't sustain the things that got us there. So we end up stopping, we end up, not training, not going to the gym, potentially even hating that whole process that got us those results because it was so intense, it was so unsustainable. When we finish that fat loss phase, we end up basically just going straight back to those old
Mhm.
habits or potentially dieting ourselves into a hole, so to speak, where we just so exhausted, so like tired of that whole process that we end up like, I can't do this anymore. And then we could potentially get into some, bad habits when it comes to food, maybe some binge eating, and regaining that weight and yo-yo dieting. I think a lot of people would have heard the concept of yo-yo dieting, and that's basically the premise of what I wanted to talk about today is how can we lose weight in a sustainable way and have that perspective on this lifestyle change and how we can actually get to that goal without doing unsustainable things and without yo-yoing in weight, which is so common and something that I've done many, many times in the past. So yeah, that was the idea behind, what I'd really like to get across on this call.
Thanks, Mark. And let's be honest. If this was easy, obesity wouldn't be such a big problem in the U.S. and globally.
Yeah.
So the sustainability, losing weight, losing fat, many of us have been through it time and time and time again. But I think what you hope to share and what you hope to convey to the community is that you need to think about this not as a, dig yourself into a hole, get to I lost 10 pounds, but how am I going to lose that weight and keep that weight off long term? Because the yo-yoing is not good for you physiologically. Um, so what what tips work, what things work for you? Because as you said, you've been through this and you've learned the hard way probably. But what can you share? Maybe there's two or three things that are key takeaways for how to make this sustainable and not just I lost it, I gained it, I lost it, I gained it. When what I actually see is the trajectory, the line is going up, you're losing and gaining, but your weight is continuing to go up, which despite all of the fitness programs, despite all of the weight loss programs, despite all of the drugs, we're still a less healthy population than we used to be.
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, it's very difficult, I think, in today's day and age, just because of the prevalence of food. It's so easy. Like, how easy is it to jump in your car, drive 5 minutes, sit in the line at the drive-through at McDonald's, take in like 1,500 calories to 2,000 calories just for breakfast, or go to Starbucks and do the same thing. And we sit in our car and we drive to work, and then we sit down all day, and then we get back in the car and we drive
Mhm.
back, and we sit down all night. And that was basically my life. That's how I gained so much weight. The most amount of movement I would do was walking to my car, and that was it. That's genuinely so true. And I would drive straight to Subway, and I would get this big, huge sandwich. And I thought that was healthy, which it is. It's a good option, but I would just be taking in so many calories, and that would just be the start of the day. That's without all of the snacks and all of the, juices and sodas. And so it is really difficult. So we do definitely have to have a perspective of overall a little bit understanding of energy balance. Like how much energy does my body actually need to sustain my weight? So if you don't want to gain weight, eating 1,000, 2,000 calories more than what your body needs naturally is not going to be the best thing for your overall health, and it's going to kind of go against your goals. So we need to start thinking a little bit more about energy balance and just understanding that overall. I think that was a big key for me, because sometimes we often try and lose weight and we think, I'm going to eat healthy. And again, healthy can mean a lot of things. And, you can eat healthy and go and eat, let's say, in terms of energy, you could eat a bag of nuts, big bag of cashews, super healthy food, but you could eat like 1,500 calories of cashews, which for some people could be the entire calorie amount for the day if they want to lose weight.
Yep.
So we have to be mindful of like the healthy fallacy. Obviously, we want to eat as much healthy whole foods as possible, but energy is going to be the biggest thing. So getting an understanding of energy balance and just understanding that, I think that's number one, because there are no good and or bad foods. There's foods which are probably better for you than others, but really the understanding of energy is kind of number one. So that's key to understanding, like, hey, I want to lose weight. How do I do this? Energy balance. So I'd say that was number one. Number two would be understanding timeline. So this is where a lot of people, including myself, used to go wrong. So I used to think very short term, and I think a lot of people do think very short term when it comes to fat loss. Okay, I'm going to lose weight, maybe 90 days, and we like that's as far as the mind will go. It's like 90 days. Okay, I can commit to 90, but any
But how
longer,
long did it take you to gain the weight?
yeah, exactly. So it can take a long time to gain the weight. So in this, what I mean, sorry, that's a good thing to bring up, because there's very few, although there are some people that are 90 days away from their
Mhm.
ideal body weight.
Exactly.
there are some people, but it depends on where you're at. So the timeline is more specifically to where you are currently. So, understanding, okay, how much extra body fat, how much extra weight am I holding? And, you can get rough estimations online and do some body fats, DEXA scans and stuff like that. And you can get a good idea of, okay, this is how much body fat percentage I have. I need to get to this body fat percentage for good health. And there's ranges again, which you can find online. We won't go into the full details like on this call, but you can get an idea. Okay, I am here and I need to get to there.
Mm-hmm.
Then under the umbrella of sustainability, to make sure that we don't crash diet, we have to think, okay, what is sustainable for me what's realistic? What is a realistic goal for me to achieve in the next 12 weeks, let's say? So usually the rule of thumb, and although there can be pluses or minuses, around this overall in terms of it might not be exactly like this for you, but a general rule of thumb is going to be roughly we're going to aim to lose about 1 pound of body fat per week sustainably. And if we do that, it shouldn't be something which is so incredibly challenging to do that the body will fight back. You won't be starving yourself, and not like eating 500 calories per day. You'll be able to eat a good amount of food and you'll be able to lose weight sustainably without you feeling totally sluggish and like you don't even want to get out of bed in the morning. You should be feeling this should be sustainable, so we can do that. Now, with that in mind, so it's like, okay, I can lose about 12 pounds in the next 12 weeks. We could diet for a little bit longer, maybe go up to 16 weeks. Around about that point is, even in a sustainable way, we might start seeing the body fighting back a little bit, some potential slowing down of the metabolism as the body starts to basically understand that, hey, we're eating less food. If we keep eating less food for a longer and longer period of time, this is not going to be good for us. So let's just slow that metabolism down a little bit. And again, we won't go into the science on that. And it's not, I'll bring that up, but I don't want to talk about that in a blasé way. Like it's, it is something that happens, but it's not something to be like scared
Right.
of. It's just something that can happen. If you prolong a diet for way too long, like I'm going to diet for the next year, that's not going to be a good approach. So we have to think about a 12, maybe up to a 16-week fat loss phase. So it's like, okay, maybe I could squeeze out 16 pounds in this fat loss phase. But if you have to lose 100 pounds, which I did, okay, well, it's now not going to be realistic to think that I can just go into a diet, 90 days, crush it as hard as I can and try and lose 100 pounds in that time. That's just not going to be possible. It's not going to be sustainable, and it's going to lead to failure. It's going to lead to you being totally disheartened. Your physical state of mind, or your physical state, your mental state is going to be not feeling too good. We're going to end up failing that phase. So really the main goal is what I'm trying to talk about here is thinking about, okay, what is the timeline? How much do I need to lose? How can I plan this out in the most sustainable way for me? And sometimes that might take a year. For some people, it might take 2 years. And I know in today's day and age, we want it now. We pull our phone up, click a button, the thing gets delivered in 30 minutes or the next day. So we want everything now. And sometimes when it comes, or a lot of the times, in fact, when it comes to fat loss, we do have to have a little bit of patience, and we need to plan this out in a very smart way to make sure that we can actually achieve that goal. And that is understanding timeline. It's understanding where am I at, how do I strategically plan these fat loss phases across the next 6 months, 1 year, or longer, depending on how far you've got to go. Naturally, if somebody has 40 pounds of excess weight or body fat, they're going to be able to get to that goal faster than someone that has 100. That we can't speed up fat loss, unfortunately, or you can, but typically that leads to yo-yo, and if we try and go too fast. So it's trying to be like, breathe. Okay, this might take a little bit of time, but if I do this in a smart way and I think about this, okay, this time next year, I'll have the ideal body weight. I'll have lost 60 pounds. I'll feel fantastic. That's what we want to try and get into our mind with that whole sustainable approach. Because if not, and this is where I kind of messed up for a long time, it took me 6 years to lose 100 pounds.
Uh-huh.
So in
But you probably lost and gained that weight how many
That's it.
times?
That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So it wasn't like I'd planned this out for 6 years. That
Yeah.
would be, it was, I lost a lot of weight. I put that weight back on. I
Yep.
lost a lot of weight. So if I could go back and coach myself now, I could say like easily I would have done that within 2 years, like without a doubt. And I would have saved myself 4 years of yo-yo and back up and down and not feeling really good and potentially struggling a lot mentally with body shape and also like thoughts around food as well. So sometimes we just need to have that bigger picture, think a little bit longer than 12 weeks, try and structure it in a way where we can sustainably lose that weight over a longer period of time. And although you might be like, oh, that's really frustrating, if I pushed harder and I ate even less, I could get there faster. Okay, technically on paper, that's
Yeah.
true. But on paper and in reality are two
Yes.
separate things. So what'll end up happening is you'll end up pushing so hard, you will fall off the diet, you will rebound, you'll put that weight back on, you'll do that 2 or 3 times, and in a year time, and in 1 year's time, you'll end up maybe if you're lucky 5 or 10 pounds down. When if you went for that slower, steady approach, you'd be 60 pounds down. So it's sometimes it's like the tortoise and the hare. It's like that. It's that age old story. It's a perfect analogy. We have to just take it slow and steady. And if we do that, we will end up way further ahead than if we try to rush it.
You can't run the marathon like it's a 100-meter dash. Yeah.
No, definitely not. Yeah,
Yes.
that's a perfect analogy. If you try
Yeah.
to sprint, you have to stop and you have to slow down. Your body can't handle that. And the same thing with the diet. If we try and sprint way too fast with a diet and just expect that we can run at full speed for that length of time, it's definitely not going to work. And I mean, it shows from my experience from research that those styles of intense diets, they don't work. We need to think about a slow, sustainable approach. And then linking into number three, which I think is the most important, is making sure that the things that help us lose the weight are going to be the same things that help us maintain that weight loss in the long
Mhm.
term as well. So, and that's a big aspect of sustainability where if we commit ourselves to, I'm going to do 1 hour on the elliptical every single morning, and then I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to train for 1 hour every night. I'm going to train 2 times per day, and then I'm going to eat 1,200 calories, and I'm going to really just shred the body fat off my body. Okay, now you definitely will shred body fat, but how long can you keep that up for? Can you keep that up for 12 weeks? If you can, kudos to you, because that's very strong willpower. That's extremely difficult to do. And let's say you do get to that point and you finish 12 weeks, you've lost like 25, 30 pounds in that time, totally crushed it. What happens at the end of that fat loss phase?
Mhm.
Do you continue doing 1 hour cardio every day and training every single day, 7 days per week, eating 1,200 calories? Or do you get to
Forever.
that forever? Or do you crawl across that finish line and be like, oh, I'm so glad that's done. I don't want to look at another plate of broccoli again. I don't want to even go to the gym. I'm so exhausted, but hey, I got good results. Take a picture. I looked really good that week. And then boom, we start eating food again. And then we just pile that weight back on because we can't sustain that sort of level. So we have to think about what is something that I can not just do for the next 12 weeks. What could I do for the next 12 months? What could I do for the next 12
12
years?
years. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's trying to like think about that. And I know that there's going to be times throughout life where we can do a little bit more and a little bit less depending on how busy we are, but we really need to start thinking about that sustainable long-term approach. And that comes from how much exercise that we can do realistically, and also how we eat, like how do we eat? Is it realistic for you to eat extremely complex meals 4 times per day? And like sometimes it might be better to have a slightly simpler meals. Is it really realistic that you're going to follow a meal plan for the rest of your life? Probably not. So it's trying to understand, okay, how could what is the best way that I can get good nutritional habits, which will definitely help me in the short term in terms of that 12-week fat loss phase that we might aim for. but also it's not going to be so dissimilar to once I finally achieve that fat loss goal. It's not like night and day. It's not like,
Hmm.
okay, now I've achieved that goal, now this is going to look so different now. And it's, for the most part, that's something I used to struggle with a lot. I used to think, well, that's it, it's a completely different phase now, it's going to look so different. But really, if you've been maintaining about 500 calorie deficit, it's, the likelihood is that the food is not going to change massively. It's going to be the same foods with maybe a little bit more and a little
Yeah.
bit more flexibility, but overall it shouldn't look so drastically different. So, and if we can like embrace that and be like, okay, maybe I'm not going to train 7 days per week, but what I'll do is I'll train 3 to 4 times per week, and
Hmm.
I'll aim to get 8 to 10,000 steps per day. Okay, I could probably do a little bit more than that if I really push, but if I just aim for that, that's sustainable. I could actually see myself doing that for forever. I actually don't see any reason why I couldn't do that forever. And then that's the big thing, because when it comes to health and fitness, we can get into this short-term mindset. Well, if I just go really hard for the next 6 weeks, but that hard effort ends up, ending up in burnout, and then we don't do it. But if we just do a slightly less amount than we think we can, but we do that for the rest of our life, and
Right.
we're like 80 years old and we're still going to the gym 3 times per week, and like this is like more longer term approach to fitness. And of course, that's the more exercise element to this whole equation. Exercise will definitely help with fat loss, but really the exercise element is something we want to start incorporating into our life, to be there as a regular feature every week, every month, every year, for the rest of our life. We don't stop exercise. It might change in certain ways, but it's not like I'm going to start exercising to lose weight. Yeah, it's going to help, but it's like, no, I'm going to start exercising to be healthy. And then I'm going to do some level of calorie counting or understanding my energy balance. That's going to help me lose weight in the short term. After the 6 months to a year that I've got myself to the healthy body, okay, now I'm just going to live at a maintenance. I'm going to maintain my weight loss. The exercise was always there, so we don't want to think about approaching exercise just for weight loss. Because once you've lost the weight and you're just exercising for weight loss, well, why go to the gym anymore? You've lost the weight. And then, yeah, sorry, I'll let you
No,
talk.
no, no, Mark, because you brought up some good points that the habit and lifestyle changes you make have to be sustainable. So they can't be something that you can run and do for 12 weeks or 16 weeks and then think that something magical is going to happen at the end of that time and you haven't changed how you live. So, I mean, our approach is really to look at all of the pillars because it's not fat loss is not just exercise. Because if you're not eating healthfully, you won't sustain it. You can't out exercise if you're not eating within the energy balance that you need to sustain your goals. But are you also sleeping? Are you also doing all of the other that are a part of being healthy? Because you can't tease them all apart. They're all connected, and it really is during that 12 to 16 weeks when you're initially invested in getting toward that goal, and maybe it's a year or 2 years, that you're making changes that you could sustain for the long term.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the faster that we can find what works for us in terms of those movement habits, those sleep habits, those mindset habits, what we fill our mind with as well. Like the more we can start bringing that future us closer to us today and start doing those actions. When you think of yourself, like once I achieve that goal, and you can imagine, you visualize yourself as this, this fit, healthy person, and you're like, I want to get there, and thinking, okay, what does that person who I'm thinking of, what do
Mhm,
they do
mhm.
to look like that? Not what did they do to get there, although that will kind of be the same thing, but sometimes what does that person do, this higher version of yourself, what does this person do on a daily basis to maintain that health, to maintain that good mental clarity, to maintain good relationships with everybody? Like, what does that person do? And we start thinking like that, and then we can almost like reverse engineer it. It's like, well, that person probably goes to bed at a reasonable time. They get about 8 hours of sleep. Maybe that person doesn't sit at nighttime and like order a Domino's pizza like I used to do back in the day. It's probably not the best habit to have all of the time. Maybe that person gets up in the morning and they go for a 30-minute walk, or they hit a certain amount of steps, they move their body regularly. So it's just trying to think about that, who that person you want to be in the future, and try and almost like emulate what you would think that that person does and bring it into your life, and you build those habits today, work towards them. There will be failures, you'll try and they'll fail, we try again, that's just part of the whole process. But we need to start trying to implement these things into our daily life, because if we only implement them for a short period of time just to see fat loss on the scale or weight loss on a scale for the next 12 weeks, again, you can definitely see that. But at the end of that fat loss phase, when you've lost that weight and you've achieved that goal, if we only done it for the goal, then we're not going to be able to continue that. And that's the main thing, is having a plan for beyond the fat loss goal, because everyone wants to lose fat. But we don't think about, okay, once we've lost the fat, what do we do then? And a lot of that
Yes.
basically comes into, it's the habits. And if we can do the habits that are going to make us, the habits that we're going to do once we've lost the weight, if we can do those habits now and help us lose the weight, then we're already one step ahead. Because once we lost the weight, we're already doing all of those habits. We built those habits into our body. It's part of our normal life. So then when we now have achieved that fat loss goal, we just continue on, and and again, it has to be sustainable. It can't be unrealistic habits. Like, so there's some things that we can definitely aim to do, which are all good things. But if we try and do implement too many good habits at once, or even just too many habits for any individual, everybody has a certain capacity. And I know there's a lot of great habits that I could probably do, which I don't, like lots of journaling and ice baths, and I'll get a cold shower every day. Okay,
Can't do every no.
that would probably be good, but like, I don't
Don't
want to
have
be
time to work or live.
yeah, yeah, it's too much, and I know there's benefits to those things, but for me, I don't think that would be sustainable to jump in a cold shower every morning. So sometimes it's just trying to like look through all of these good things that we could do, picking out the ones that really kind of resonate with us, that are going to help us there. And then if you can add things at certain points, that's excellent. But it has to be sustainable. If we try and do everything at once, it won't be. We'll burn out. We just need a few key habits when it comes to those different, the 3 M's that we talk about, is just some movement habits,
Mhm.
some nutritional habits and mindset habits. And it doesn't have to be extreme. It just has to be very small changes, and those small changes you can implement into your life over time. It may be like, oh, well, I could do more. Yeah, you could. But if we do this and we do it for a long time, we can see huge, drastic changes in the long term, and that's kind of like linking back to the whole idea on this call. It's, how do we shake away that short-term thinking? How can we zoom out, get a bird's eye view on the timeline of our life, and start planning things in slightly larger blocks than just 90 days? We can think about the next 10 years, and then definitely break it up into smaller chunks. That's smart goals. We need to do that. We can't just think about, okay, in the next 10 years, but we have to have that, at least that thought of the next 10 years, and not just, okay, the next 6 weeks. And then I'm not thinking about after that. It's just 6 weeks. I'm just going to push hard. It can usually end up in, yeah, like we said, those yo-yo patterns when it comes to fat loss.
And so, Mark, as we're winding up, that probably also addresses one of the questions we had, which is you can't be fixated on the changes that happen every single day. So the micro changes, I mean, my weight can fluctuate 5 pounds from Friday to Sunday.
Yeah,
Um, and if I let my head get around that, it would drive me crazy. But if I'm looking at the long game, what is my average over the week? What is my average over the 2 weeks? That's different than trying to look at 4 pounds up, 2 pounds down.
yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I think that's another good thing about the longer term perspective is it kind of gets us out of that short term thinking, because you think, okay, if we are wanting to see weight loss every single day and that's what we're expecting, but weight will naturally fluctuate because of like food volume, sodium, just water retention, if you've been to the toilet that morning, like lots of different reasons. So we can look at the scale on the daily basis and be like really frustrated. So having that ability to be like, hey, I understand the energy balance, understand that I'm in a calorie deficit right now, and everything I'm doing when it comes to fitness and the nutritional approach, this is really good. It's sustainable. I just need to just have a little bit of patience with that and not get too caught up with the daily fluctuations. And if we expect to see it next week, even though we've done really well that week, you could put in all of the effort and do all of the exercise all day every day for a week. Even then we're not going to see vast changes in our body composition. So it's like, okay, it doesn't matter. I can't speed this up. I just need to think about how can I pace this? How can I go at a nice, consistent pace, which I can do for a long period and not get too hyper focused on those daily changes on the scale? Because the main thing when it comes to that, it doesn't mean you're not actually making progress. Like Daphne said, her weight can fluctuate, mine can fluctuate massively. I could put some pickles on my salad and wake up the next day 4 pounds heavier. And I'm like, what? Like, why? What's
What
going on?
happened? What did I
What,
do?
what did I do? Oh, this is not working. This is terrible. I'm putting all my effort in, and I wake up and I'm 4 pounds heavier. This is just not for me. And then that's when that spiral and negative thoughts can come in, where it's like, oh, that's not what I expected today. This is too hard. I don't want to do this, and then we basically end up stopping. And that, I suppose, along with doing things too aggressively, um, and end up yo-yoing because we basically ask too much of ourselves to do that, like long term. Also, there's a huge aspect when it comes to mindset and allowing that longer perspective when it comes to fat loss, just so that it doesn't affect our mindset, because our mindset is really crucial to all of this.
It is.
It's if we think everything is doom and gloom and we're never going to get to that result, the likelihood is that that will come into fruition, because you'll get so frustrated and fed up with the whole process that you will just stop, and then we won't get there.
100% agree. And Mark, that is a great place to wrap up for today. Mindset is key, and it probably is the foundation for sustainable lifestyle change, period. And that could be fat loss, it could be gaining muscle, it could be a combination. If you're trying to do some recomposition where you're accomplishing both, you have to look at this as a long game. This is not a again, you're not sprinting the marathon. You really have to pace yourself. And to Mark's point, understand your energy balance, understand your timeline, and then make habits and sustainable lifestyle changes. Um, Mark, any last tips that you want to share with the community before we wrap up for today? This has been a great conversation.
Yeah, I hope it's been helpful. I think tips again is just really focus on trying not to rush it, and trying not to do the things that you would really find enjoyable as well. Find enjoyment from this. Don't look at what's optimal, because you could sometimes see that this is the optimal way to time your protein throughout the day by eating these meals, or this is the most optimal way to do exercise. This is the most optimal. Sometimes we can get really what's that,
Yes.
analysis paralysis.
Yep. Yep.
Sometimes the most optimal thing, although again on paper could be the most optimal, and studies might show that this is the best way to do a certain technique in the gym or certain whatever it might be. But if you can't do this thing consistently week in week out, it's
It's not
not the
right
most
for you.
optimal thing. Yeah, it's not the most optimal for you. Whereas maybe playing tennis 2 times per week and doing like, two exercises in the gym for the next 20 years is the most optimal thing for your health, and even though I might not recommend that as a coach to be the most optimal thing, we have to understand that everyone's a little bit different, and what you enjoy doing and what you can do consistently is almost always going to be the most optimal thing for your health.
Drop the mic right there. Yes. Marc, thank you so much for joining us today on the Vegan Gym Live. This has been a great conversation. And I hope if you were listening to us live or if you're listening to us on the replay, take away those pearls that Coach Marc was sharing. He's been on this journey, so he's trying to um, allow you to learn vicariously about those things that'll work, which is really thinking about this in the long game. Work with your coach, understand that you'll have milestones, you'll want to achieve goals, but you really want to look at this and have a mindset that looks at this from not just the first 90 days or the first 16 weeks, but what are you going to be doing 60 years from now? Awesome conversation, Marc. Thank you. And talking about mindset, I would encourage you to join us next week at 11 a.m. Eastern, where we will have Coach Tiana joining us, and we're going to touch some more on the topic of mindset because, as Marc shared today, it's foundational for you to really change how you're looking at this to make this something that will not only allow you to achieve your goals, but that it will be sustainable for the long term. Until then, superheroes, thank you for joining us. It's been awesome, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.